Perfect. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Thank you for joining us. There's a good crowd here today. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that the land we identify as RTO9 is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples. RTO9 honors the land, the people, and the treaties, recognizing the original guides of these territories and their enduring contributions. As treaty people, we all share the responsibility to uphold these agreements in a fair and respectful way. As a partner of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, RTO9 is committed to supporting Indigenous communities by creating space for their stories and helping foster socioeconomic growth through tourism. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. First, if you didn't hear, the workshop's being recorded and it will be available for viewing after today's session on the RTO9 website, which is just rto9.ca. There's opportunity for questions, so feel free to pop them in the Q&A box, which can be done at the bottom of your screen or into the chat window on the side. Debbie and I will be keeping an eye on people's questions coming in. And after today's session, you're going to get a quick 2-minute survey link if you can spare some time to review the workshop. We were just discussing that. It gives us some good, valuable feedback, and it would be really appreciated if you can send some insights along. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our lovely facilitator this morning, Dolores McAdam and Debbie from Festivals and Events Ontario.
Wonderful. Thanks, Meg. What a great
Thank you so much.
introduction. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again this morning. We're here for the second of three sessions with Dolores McAdam, who's going to be talking about volunteers. So, Dolores, over to you. Welcome back. Lovely to see you again.
Well, thank you, Debbie, and good morning, everyone. Also, thank you to Meg. Good morning, everyone. Here we have there's a number of people on this call, so that's fantastic. And as Meg mentioned, we'll be watching for questions, and there is opportunities. I betted into the presentation that we can have a little bit of discussion, because I think as much as I'm presenting, I also think we can all learn from each other. So you'll see me kind of dive into some of those areas. So those who don't know me, my name is Dolores McAdam. I work for the City of Ottawa. There, my role is I manage marketing, communications, and sponsorship. And for many years, I managed the event office. We actually created an event office. But I also, just so you have some background, chair a 3-day music festival. That's a volunteer role. I was president of Festival Events Ontario a number of years ago, and I was on that board, Debbie, I think like for 8 years. It was a
Yeah,
long
you were
time.
around. Yeah, that's how we got
Yeah,
to know each other really
I'm one
well.
of the OGs,
Yeah.
original gangsters. And I also teach at the International Festival Event School in Virginia every year. So I go there every January. They have a graduate program. So I've been teaching there now. I think this is my 13th year. So all that to say that there's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is volunteers, but it's coming from different areas. There's some diversity in my role as volunteering as chairing a festival, and then also the kind of the municipal government side of it. So with that, we'll get started, Meg, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so today the objectives for today are to understand the landscape in Ontario. I really focused on Ontario because of Deb and Meg. Like your focus is Ontario versus international or throughout North America. But certainly I can answer any questions to that as well. We're going to talk about recruitment and what works for festivals, and we're going to talk about best practices for onboarding and retention and recognition. That bottom one is key, and that's why we're here today, is to talk about how do you get your volunteers and how do you retain them. So we'll keep going if that's okay. So this is me. And why I have this is because, again, to show that my running joke is I'm going to write a book called Both Sides Now, because I've done events and still do in the government, but I also do it in the private sector. And I can tell you what was a big awakening for me is when like 5 years ago, I took on the Stewart Park Festival in Perth. Was a volunteer role. We have a committee of 12. Everyone's a volunteer, but it is a 3-day music festival, and we'll get about 28,000 people. I'll talk more about that. But the reason I put this here, because when I took that on in Perth, and especially coming from government, I don't know if there's anyone on the call from municipalities. It's so different when you work for a municipality versus you're the volunteer in the community and you're dealing with the town, but you have no, let's call it clout to make things happen. Like you really, it's tough out there when you're trying to manage a festival in a municipality and you're not working for the municipality. So we'll keep going if that's okay. But so this is the Stewart Park Festival that I spoke about. So that actually should be 28,000, the number. And I just put that there to kind of give you a sense of this festival. What I will tell you, it's a festival by donation. They used to call it a free festival, but we changed the language to say that it's a festival by donation. And I can tell you, we would apply for grants, as we all do. We had the gateways into the park. We have donation boxes. And when we started changing the language to festival by donation, it's amazing. Literally the amount of money we get in. Like we get, like, I think, like in July, the Saturday, so went all day, the donation boxes at the gate where we have volunteers who are thanking people as they walk by. You don't have to donate because the whole focus is that regardless of your economic status, you can attend the festival. But we got over $20,000 on the Saturday. And it's just really in the marketing language. So if anyone was interested in that, we can take it offline. We can book a call and we can talk about it. But it made such a difference. And the Friday we made, I think, 19,000 in donations. But it's really just changing the language that did this in the radio ads and everything else. We're going to go. I'll just have one more picture there. There's the group, part of the group anyway. That's the festival group. All of us are volunteers. There's not one paid position there. So that was kind of our last, on Sunday, we always take our family picture, so to speak. So, but before I go on to the presentation, I'm going to ask, I got a trivia question to start this, because now we're going to get into the meat, so to speak. So my question is, what is a common volunteer role at Ontario in arts festivals? What's the most common role? And you can, Debbie, if they type it in, can you see it?
Nothing yet. Oh, parking is one.
Anyone else?
Welcome table, greeter, staffing a booth, gate attendant.
Who said gate attendant? That is the most that's the most popular based on data, right? So it's a gate admissions, and they call it the green team. I don't know if any of the festivals here have that. We had it at ours, but I'm not basing the answer. I'm basing it on research. The gates is the number one thing. So, okay, so we'll have some more trivia as we go down the road here. Deb, we'll move on if that's okay to the next sorry. So that's a volunteer role for a small community in Perth. And this here is a city. This is when the city of Ottawa was celebrating its 150th anniversary. And we had a machine. This was an amazing, it's just, the whole summer was celebrating the 150th anniversary of Ottawa. And for this here, we had a lot of volunteers, like hundreds of volunteers. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, the difference when you're with the private sector and when you're with municipality in terms of what people are looking for. So I just thought, I don't know if anyone came to Ottawa. If any of you on the call were in Ottawa, please let us know for those, for the celebrations. They were fantastic. And then of course, Winterlude was another big celebration. So we had the summer festivities and then the winter festivities. So there. So I put this together, and it's just really, it's like for those on the call who work in a municipality and those who don't, it's to kind of give you a sense of what people are looking for when they're volunteering and what are the opportunities. So here you'll see, like for the private sector, it's there's a motive there. What's the barrier? It's a profit motive and can deter volunteers. Government, the difference there is it's community pride. So people want they want to give back to their community, so they'll volunteer at the municipal level, and they also do it in the private sector as well. And the recruitment network, you have to build it independently. The municipality, they have access to many platforms to get volunteers. I often, and I mention it later on, is if you're running a festival or any type of event, and I'll say this because with an event, it could be like in Ottawa, for example, an event sadly can be a funeral of a dignitary. where, suddenly there's a passing and we need volunteers. So for that, we would go to our counselors and ask them if they can get some people from their community. But if you're running a festival, you can also go to your counselors and ask them to put the message out for you, which we'll talk about in a bit. So there's just the incentive, it's tangible but less meaningful. With the government, it's intangible but mission driven. So very often people want to volunteer for let's just call it government, because sometimes they're looking for a job. So it's an opportunity for them to network. The process for the private sector is fast and flexible. The government one it's structured and it's very procedural. I actually see how volunteers can get frustrated with working in government, like volunteering for government, because it's not fast. There's a lot of protocols that have to be followed, but it's just the reality of it. Whereas the private sector, folks just might want to volunteer on a Saturday or a Thursday, and then they're in and they're out. Whereas with the city, there's many steps you have to go through to be a volunteer, at least in our city anyway. The retention, as I mentioned, one-time roles, and the other one with the government, it's moderate and it's ongoing civic engagement. So very often, and that's not to say you can't get someone who will volunteer to get a festival or an event, and they won't come back if it's private sector. I don't mean that at all. But with the government side, what I've seen, and I've seen this in the States as well, where I teach, we have students from around the world, which is great because we learn from them as well, right? And there is an agreement around the table that with government, people seem to have more of a mission. It's not selfish. They want to get involved in government, and some want to be political leaders and they just want to network in, so to speak. And then perception is some think they're helping a brand, and there are people who may not want to volunteer because they feel the festival makes a huge profit, why can't they hire people, right? And then the other would be the government saying, I'm helping my community. So it's just varying. And that's not to say none of this is just general information. It's not saying that they can't, civic pride doesn't come from someone who's volunteering in the private sector. I'm not saying that at all, but these seem to be the differences. So we'll go to the next slide. This one here is what I mentioned, municipalities engage volunteers. So this is an old picture. You'll know when I say this because this was years ago, when the Ottawa Senators were in the playoffs. So what happened there is we had a gentleman that went on Facebook and he was telling people to gather on Elgin Street. And people were gathering, but in the thousands. So there was a pub there, and he had a message out saying, everyone go to, I think it was Lieutenant's Pump, and gather there. Well, the problem was so many people were gathering, the bar itself was not that big, so they were pouring out onto the street. So we had a bit of a crisis, and how we found out about it, I got a call from Ottawa Police saying, do you guys know what's happening on Facebook? And we didn't. And so this gentleman, he was for 2 weeks, literally, we worked from like 6 a.m. till 1 o'clock at night. At one point, there was over 80,000 people in our streets. So we had to take control of that. So part of it, we had to go and get volunteers. We have volunteers at the city. So we got volunteers. We got some of them to get us some volunteers as well. We really brought the community together to try and manage this crowd. They didn't win the playoff, but there was a lot of learnings as well. And like, for example, I don't know if any of you recall, like Vancouver had a riot years ago, and so we contacted them, and a lot of learnings from them, like just make sure the business lights are on, because it was the whole thing there was it could have gone way out of control. It was out of control for a couple of days until we were able to get ourselves together. But and then with this one as well, we did go to other municipalities and ask for their volunteers to come and help us. I'll go to the next slide if that's okay, Deb. The one thing when we talk about retaining volunteers and attracting volunteers, what I can tell you is what works at the Stewart Park Festival, and I've taken this to the States when I'm teaching, and this here is just to have that structure so people know when they're going to. Oh, Deb, are you talking to me? I can't. Deb? Meg, I don't know if Debbie's trying to say, your mic is off, Deb. Were you saying something?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. So what I would say to you is the most important thing is you have your framework. So people can look at your framework and they're like, oh, you know what? There's a 2 to 4 shift doing this. Like if you the more you have it spelled out for people, it's going to attract volunteers. So this is our framework that we use for festival weekend, and we post it, and the volunteers can look at it and they can determine, okay, where do they see themselves fitting in? And then they work with our volunteer coordinator. This is key for anyone who's on here that does festivals. The framework, it's for everything from like the artists, when the artists are playing, what time we do setup, what time we do breakdown. It's for basically project management, but this is our Bible, and I can send it to you, a framework, but this is so good, and it's so good for the volunteer coordinator. But again, it's communicating what's the expectation. So we all know what a volunteer is. It's someone who gives freely of their time. In Canada, it's interesting. I was looking at the stats in Canada, and like, so 24.5 million Canadians volunteered in 2024. That number has gone down now. Now it's close to 18 million. Like, it's really sad, the number coming down for volunteers. So this session, and kudos to Deb and Meg, because you're seeing the need, right, for volunteers. That volunteers are aging. The younger folks, they volunteer, but they don't want to be attached to something for years. And I'm speaking generally because I realize some people want that. And then there's common characteristics, and it's typically passion, excitement, and they have empathy, and they want to give back. So who volunteers for festivals? It's typically students. They want the experience. They have more free time. They also want to build their hours for school, the 40 hours a week or 40 hours a year. I think is it 40 hours a year? I'm pretty sure. They have to volunteer. So we get a lot of students on for that. Young professionals, they want to network, is what I had mentioned earlier. And newcomers to the community and to our country. We see a lot of that in Ottawa. We really notice that, like, God love the people, they come here and they just want to be part of it. They're amazing to volunteer, and we learn from them, they learn from us. So it's a perfect fit. Family volunteering, it was on the rise. Now it's the challenge is getting the families to volunteers in some areas, but it's a nice opportunity. Like our festival, we have family volunteering. So say, for example, a mom and dad with 2 kids, they can come and spend a Saturday with us. They hear great music. They're volunteering. They're showing their kids leadership as well. We have a lady and her 2 kids. We're in Ontario. They're in Quebec, and they've been coming the last 3 years because for her, they get a hotel room and they volunteer all weekend because she wants her kids to see the need to give back. And what she had said to me, she had a difficult time finding a place where her kids could actually be with her. Like, they volunteer, but now, like, they're not volunteering on Friday and she's volunteering on Saturday. We schedule, so they're working as a team on the weekend. So it's great. And then the retirees and the community champions, and that's folks with experience and reliability. You saw the picture of Stewart Park Festival. The committee's an older group. Most of them are retired. I'm not retired, but most of them are retired, and they just want to give back. And when you're doing that, what I would recommend, if you're putting a committee together, really tap into the skills of the people. So, for example, if you need someone to do the books for your festival, reach out to an accounting group to see, do they know of anyone who would be interested in participating? That's the best ways to go to your network. So why it's important. So this is really important that we have volunteers, and I'm going to relate to Stewart Park Festival. As I mentioned, we're all volunteers. We start with $0 every year. We don't have a budget. We do develop a budget for the festival, but we don't have money in the bank, and we literally count on grants and sponsorship and the donations. And it's not costing the town of Perth anything, because we raise money every year. And this is for most festivals, right? It's a cost saving. It's community engagement. People get to develop skills, as I mentioned, smooth operations and positive atmosphere. Recruiting tips, identify your needs. We're going to talk about that in a bit. And it's very important, as I just mentioned, to have clear roles and clear descriptions of the roles. and to leverage your network. And you're going to hear me say that a lot, but it is important to get out there, get to know your community. And there's a whole network out there of people that want to get involved, but they don't know how to get involved. Or we've seen in our festival, people they want to give, but they're shy to sign up. So you can host a volunteer, a night, just an open house, even if it's in a park, get people together and you give them information about volunteering. We've done that. And you want to simplify registration, which we'll talk about. If it's too complicated to register to be a volunteer, you're not going to get people really, because people just want, and I mentioned it earlier or later, 5-7 questions, that is. Like, don't put 20 questions down. They don't have the time. And especially if they're working and they want to volunteer, they just want quick, fill out the form and away we go. And offer incentives, you would do that. Communicate effectively. I can't say that enough. Provide training and show appreciation and consistent schedules. I would recommend if anyone on this call is new in terms of recruiting volunteers, that you keep this slide and really kind of use it as your checkoff when you're trying to put a volunteer program together. So the recruitment, the key steps, identify who would be interested in your event. It could be, depending on what the event is, if it's a sports related event, go to the sports clubs. They're typically, or if it's a musical event, hang out at the music store, talk to them, say you need some volunteers, and they will help you recruit volunteers. And you have to define for folks, like, why would they want to volunteer? We can't just assume like, oh, they like music, so they'd volunteer. You have to really define for them why they would volunteer for you versus another group. And are there options for the volunteer? That's key, because some people, so for example, when I say, if you need someone to do your books, get someone who's a retired accountant. That retired accountant may not want to do books. He might want to try something new, so he's learning a new skill as well. So it's just really clear to identify what they're interested in. And current volunteers can help. And what I would recommend there is you do testimonials on your website from current volunteers, and also do some social media feeds with your current volunteers. And what you need to do is throughout the year to stay engaged with your volunteers and identify where to recruit new volunteers. And that I'm going to talk about, give you some examples. So this is where we talked about what the roles are, and I used a festival for an example. So it's, as we mentioned, the front gate, usually a 2 to 6 hour shift. You want ambassadors, information ambassadors, and to help with wayfinding, to greet people as they're coming in, and just to kind of maneuver around the crowd. But it's also very important that you have something on them identifying them as a volunteer. Typically, it's a t-shirt. They would be the artist liaison, and they do setup, takedown, hospitality, and merch. We have a lady she's been volunteering 25 years now, and her role is to get food for the artists back up stage. And she works with all the restaurants throughout the year, and literally we get the food free for the entire weekend. Deb, you've seen it back a stage when and that's all done by volunteers. And accessibility and inclusion support is critical, as we all know. And I would recommend people have training for their volunteers on the AODA. People assume that folks just know what to do if somebody's in a wheelchair or if they need assistance. I would never assume. I would do the training with them. And social media and festival newsletter. Some people say, oh, a newsletter is a lot of work. Well, it is. But if you keep it engaging and you use those testimonials, you only need to do, I would do 4 a year. Just do them quarterly, one before, like there's, obviously the before your festival and after your festival, and then just do 2 other ones. So we're doing it quarterly, 4 quarters. And those other 2 can just be, hey, this is happening somewhere else, or it doesn't necessarily need to be about your festival. You can just write about, what's happening in Chicago. And you can just, people like that, like, okay, what are they doing with their volunteers? What are they doing differently? And I can help any of you because, so for example, in January, I'll be with close to 300 students, and we stay in residence for a week with them. And if you ever want to just connect outside of, even outside of Ontario or in the States, if there's a particular festival that you're very interested in, chances are someone at that group will will know who to connect you with. So just let me know and I can line you up there. The other is your local media. What I would recommend, if you're leading whoever's involved in your committee, that you go and you have a coffee with the media, get to know your media people. And media can be, we buy media, of course, but you always get more when you have that relationship with them. And ask for time to go live, invite them to be at your festival, excuse me, but also, go into the radio station and do a Saturday morning. And I know I'm making it sound easy, but honestly, if you build that relationship, it does become easy, and they get to know you, and they then become part of your festival. And we'll go to the next one. So this is just this is a template. So the person at the gate, and so say it's 4 hours. And the reason I did this is just, again, it's very important to communicate the expectations, and that's key. And why would they join? And then the recruitment. Requirements. And then always have a sign-up link. You would just insert it there. But that, I just put that there because you could put any title. It could be backup stage, and then just put what the expectation is. And I would have them on your website. So here's some recruitment strategies. So I can read through this, but I'll just talk about them at high level. It's, again, identify the needs of your organization. Like, who do you need volunteering? Do you need someone who has an interest in first aid? Oh yeah, Debbie's newsletter. Yes, Deb. Yeah, that's great. That is great. Yeah. It could be someone who's interested in first aid. It could be someone who's just generally interested in, let's say, if it's music, or it could be an agricultural festival. And somebody might be interested in learning more about that. So then they'll typically get involved. And identify the recruitment channels, the schools, universities, and the universities, obviously, depending on where you are, but the universities, some of them have their own radio station, and I would link with them as well. And then because the students listen to them, right? So there's an opportunity for you to go in, speak, and you could do a live radio show with them, but also failing that, just have them announce your festival and that you're looking for volunteers. And again, it's to make it meaningful. That's the big thing, because it is hard to get volunteers these days. But if incentives are good, and yes, it would be the t-shirt and stuff, but just, really talk about the learnings and how you connect with communities. The other is meaningful partnerships. And volunteerism must be more accessible. And that I mean by the AODA. What I've seen is festivals will take place, and there are people that want to participate, and maybe they're in a wheelchair, but they can't participate because the structure's not there for them, right? If it's a field, so for example, they can't maneuver the wheelchair around. That's not fair to them. And I know it takes money to put the structure in place, but it's valuable, and there can be grant funding available for that to look at, because there's so many people that want to volunteer. We've seen it. And for whatever reason, they can't because of some mobility issue, or they might have their senses, it's just little things. But what you do is when you're calling out for volunteers, put that there, even talk about AODA, and then just have a one-on-one conversation with the person, get an understanding of what they need, and then build a role just so they can participate. The ambassador program, the emergency team. What we did with Stewart Park Festival after COVID, we found we had a really hard time getting first aid at our festival because some of them shut down during COVID. So what we did is we created our own first aid team. So we had and now we're being asked to attend other festivals, and they pay us. So it works out really well, right? So it took about a year, and then it took a lot of sponsors, in terms of getting defib, the equipment that we needed. But when we said we're going to do free training, and we worked with the paramedics, and they helped us do the training for the town, we had more people than we needed to sign up for first aid and to be the first aid liaison at our festival. So we're equipped with everything now, and if you want more information on it, just let me know. But we can go to other festivals, and we make money for our festival. And really, we just charge whatever we'd be using in supplies. The rewards program, family volunteering, as I mentioned, and I can't say enough about defining what the benefits are. And then I just put, in terms of strategies, the communication, it should be enticing. Website, we talked about that. Testimonials are key. They're key. They're key. The other thing I'd mentioned to you that one of the things we did, we went to the senior centers. You know how like they'll have community centers and the seniors play bingo on Tuesday afternoon? Go there and recruit. Because very often that's a whole area that folks are not tapping into, and we've seen it and it's been successful. I talked about the radio ads and most cities, I believe, we do a proclamation for Volunteer Day. There's the National Volunteer Day, but we also do one for our volunteers. And this one here is pretty much what I talked about already. Oh, sorry, Deb. I thought you would ask. Debbie, it popped up there. So I talked about the high 5 new skills for volunteers, social media, include testimonials, and the family learning. I would tap into the family learning, family volunteering, and I'd promote it as family volunteering. I would also, as I mentioned about the seniors, is go to those seniors clubs and talk to them. Those seniors have so much knowledge and they want to give back. So that's some of the strategies there. And then I'm going to go over to the onboarding. This again, so what I'm doing is just kind of giving you it's just to kind of give you a guide, right? So the day before.
Can I ask you a question on that,
yeah,
Dolores?
Yeah.
So have you ever, what was a big surprise when you were onboarding people or trying to recruit? What kind of thing did you not see, or have you, because you're so experienced and you've done this for a long time, was there any kind of like, oh, we didn't look at that, or we didn't cover that, or?
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I'm really stressing seniors, because we did to go and just go to the community center literally and just have a coffee or play bingo with them or whatever. I went and I played cards, right? And it was just to start talking about it. And then with this particular group, this one lady, she's like, I never thought about doing that. It was one of those conversations. And then she was like, oh, and I'll always, when she said, I'm going to call Judy, her friend Judy. And she said,
Right.
Judy and it's all about being out there. Really, it is. It's like and with seniors, respectfully, I mean, yes, they do social media and everything, but I find they like that one-on-one interaction, right? So that works. And the other one was the AODA. The other one we did is in terms of newcomers to the country or to your community, reach out to them. Again, it's your network, but find out who's new and, just say, hey, can we have a conversation, or can you introduce me to this group? Like there's a new family in Perth, for example. And this is true. They came here, they came from India and they opened a restaurant. I think might have been in Winnipeg before they came to Perth, but long story short, we just went in and talked to them like, hey, welcome to Perth. And do you know we have they didn't know about the festival, but they got involved. And now some of their friends in Ottawa come out and spend the weekend with them and they're involved. And we learn from them. It's so great, right? So, anyway, that was the one thing for sure, Deb. Yeah. And then the 30 to 45 minutes on-site orientation, that is key, because you don't want a volunteer showing up and no one's there to greet them and no one's telling them what they're doing, because they might have signed up last November for a festival that's happening the following July, right? So that's critical. And as I mentioned, make sure they're you can identify them in the crowd in case there is an emergency, or if people want they want help with something. We always make sure in our MC speaking notes that we remind people, the ones with the black t-shirt or red t, whatever it is, they're our volunteers. And that also helps too. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, but we know there's risks at festivals that weren't before, right? So this here, they have they're staged with the clothing and they represent us. What we've done with our festival as well, we have, so the volunteers have a t-shirt. For the committee members, we put committee member on the back, just in case, because sometimes people, they want to talk to, who can take action right away, which is fine. But we see that's helped. You should always have someone shadowing a volunteer for the first time. Just think of it as you would a job. I mean, I know we can't say volunteering is a job, but you should have someone with them. Even like if it's a weekend festival, just on the Friday, stay with them Friday. And the other is make sure you have a contact list of phone numbers. So the coordinator for volunteers should always have everyone's phone number in a list or on their phone, so if they need to reach out, and then have a plan in place for communication. And then when I talk about empowering the volunteers, what I have found, Deb, kind of to your point, is that, volunteers are like, they're fantastic. And some of them, I mean, they're so knowledgeable in so many areas, whether it's academics or sports or whatever. And they don't want to be treated like a child when they're volunteering. They want to be empowered. So that's key, and it's even language like, you know what, if you need me, I'm here. But, anything comes up, if you don't think you can handle it, let me know. But if you can, certainly just make sure we do an instant report or whatever. So it's just letting them decide. I'll go to the next one. Okay, so I wanted to get a sense here, like for the folks on the call. You'll see here when I talk about retention, but I was wondering, does anyone have any magic that they use when they're when they want to retain volunteers? Because retention it's critical. And it's also what we do. You can sign up right after the festival for the following year. And then we do a launch for a call for volunteers, but it also lets the volunteers know, you know what, we want you back next year. And if you like that role, let's sign up for it now. And that's worked. Is there anyone on the call that wants to talk about how they retain their volunteers? And I mean, I have some stuff there, but I don't know if anyone wants to chime in. We feed them. That's key. That's key, to feed them. And you know what? So what we do is, speaking of that, so the Sunday after the festival, so the festival is done by around 2:00 on Sunday, or so say 3:00. So Sunday evening, we bring all the festivals to this hall that we were in. It's called Crystal Palace. It's beautiful. It's right along the water, and we feed them. And we do. It's just really, and we have some music playing. Excuse me, but you're right, we feed them, and they love the Sunday evening thing. They love that. We feed them during the festival as well. Like the back of stage, so that's where the artists are, and that's where the food is. And I mentioned there's a lady that goes out and works all year with the restaurants. So those volunteers are entitled to as much food as the artists. We don't treat them like they're just as important as the artists to us. So yeah, we do feed them. We give them t-shirts. And then what we do with our t-shirts, any that we have left, the t-shirts, we then bring them on Sunday night, and the volunteers can take more if they like. And they love that. They love it.
Do you find, Laura, it's not a question here, but do you find that when these volunteers come together and they work a couple of years together, that they've expanded their own personal inner circle, and how important that is?
That's very true, Deb. That's very true. Like, you see people coming together. I see people, they work together at the festival. They may not know each other, but the next thing you know, you're out on a weekend and they're together because they've formed a bond. And very often I go back to seniors, it's seniors I see that with.
Really, eh?
Yeah, really strong friendships are formed. And that's why it's important also, in part of retention, is that you stay connected to the volunteers. So remember I talked about like the newsletter, do that quarterly, and that's where, again, the testimonials, right? Like on the social media and whatnot, the Facebook page. But even like throughout the year, what we will do is send a message like, hey, some of us are getting together at Coots Coffee Shop. Anyone want to join us? And we do get volunteers. I remember one time, I think we probably had 60 people that came. Wow. It was a lot. Yeah. And then we've had a time where we might have had 10, which is fine. But the idea is that we're thinking about them throughout the year, and they know that. And
that's important. That is so important.
Yeah, it's so important. And it's not even, just like for our guests here, we didn't buy them the coffee. We don't have money because we're raising money, but everyone just got together. They all bought themselves a tea or a coffee, and we just chatted. It was great. It was great. Yeah. And again, you can do that in a park too, free space.
Yeah. Somebody said, Carol Hughes said, we have a core group who we rely on to organize as well as the day of. They just want to be involved on the day of the event. So, and there's that as well.
There is that. There's folks that, you know what, I'll give you my time, but don't bother me throughout the year. And that's okay. That is
Right.
okay. And I find that more with the folks who have jobs, to be
Right.
honest, because we're just busy. I volunteer. I have a full-time job, and sometimes I'm like, I'll help, but then I just want to help and leave, right?
Right.
So and some of the
Yeah.
other stuff that I volunteer in, but that's absolutely right. And
And
the young
I,
and the
uh,
oh, sorry.
sorry, Dolores, I volunteer here in Kitchener, and it's for the Humane Society. And every once in a while, they will have come and meet the team. And I know it's a different kind of energy because it's bricks and mortar and 20,
Yes,
12 months a year. But it's like meet the team, meet the ED, meet the CEO. And I
yeah.
think that for people is really important too, to be able to meet people who are making a difference within their community.
Absolutely. And I was just asked to help organize a dance for the hospice group. They've never had one before, so typically they do they'll put brochures out, but now they want to do a dance to raise some money. So that's fine, I'll help, and it's all volunteer. But what we're going to do is, because we can't give out information on our volunteers because of the castle, right? So the laws, but we can send them an email and say, hey, you know what, this is coming up. If you're interested in volunteering over here, and that's where I talk about the network. So we'll send a message out, do a call to them first, who's interested. And honestly, I think we have what we need in terms of volunteers. So it's
Yeah,
good, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
I think
that's
it's great.
people like that because it's one event, it's over, it's in April, it's over, it's done, and they just move on. And we'll see them in July. So okay. Oh wait, now could you do a meet? Yeah, you could. You actually could on a virtual. You can do. Could you do meet the team on social media? Absolutely. You could do a virtual meeting, but you could also do, like I would do, like Facebook Live and put it on the Facebook. Just have have them for the volunteers. You could do a session where you have your committee and it's like, hey, we're here, we're starting to plan for 2026, and just have that all live on social media, like, hey, who wants to come and join us? We're very lucky because our volunteers tend to come back every year, but we're always recruiting. But that, yeah, we haven't done that. I know in the States, I think it's Austin, Texas. They did. I'm pretty sure it's Austin. They do that. Like they do. They when they start the process. So in September they'll start for the festival the next summer. They'll do their first kickoff meeting and they'll do it live. And they kind of make it fun, right? And it's like, hey, come join us. Come on, we got 9 months, and even if you can only do one day, but sign up. So that stuff works for sure. Anyone else? Oh, we can go to the next one, Deb. Accessibility. I talked about this, accessibility and safety and inclusion. You can't speak enough about this. And I think, and I say this with all due respect, I think that is a whole group of volunteers that people are not, I'll say, tapping into, for lack of a better way of saying it. They're there, they want to participate. But if we don't have the structure, maybe it's someone who it could be a blind person, to be honest with you, and they might want to volunteer. Well, they could sit, like, for example, with ours, they can be backstage where we are, and they could just help, greet the artists when they come in. That stuff, and they want to give back. Like I would do a whole for those. I would recommend someone just really look at the accessibility and inclusion, and then focus getting people to volunteer based on that. Like, hey, we want you to be part of our team. What are your needs? And you can go to the groups. Like you can go to the organizations, some of the not-for-profit organizations, and ask them, do they know of anyone that would be interested? And if they have needs, will the group help them? And your municipality, because the whole equity and inclusion office, most municipalities have them. I would go to them as well because they deal with newcomers to our country, or they deal with people with accessibility needs. Talk to them and see how can they help you recruit. And I mean, there's some that may not be a good fit for your festival, but I'm sure there's some that are. And it also looks really good for your festival. And it's really good to have that in your grant when you apply, because as we know, that's the focus, right? So not that I don't want to I want to focus more on the person, that we just get them out there and be part of the community. So this is again, you would use this information that I have here in for your grants. but it also shows the growth of your festival. So how many applicants did you get versus how many roles you filled? That data is really important. And volunteer retention rate, you want to pay attention to that because that's going to tell you what you need to be marketing, what you need to be pushing out. And I would recommend you have someone on your committee who be your strategic advisor. Like, where do we need to be focusing? How do you screen?
How do you screen for the best fit? Yeah.
That's where that's a great question. That's all part of the language that's in your application. And you'll recall earlier I said it's so important to talk about the roles and what the expectation is. But you can, and so that's one, because you have to be very clear in the roles, but to screen for that, for the best fit. And do you mean like with someone with accessibility needs, or just generally speaking? Right in. Accessibility, yeah. So what I would recommend is that you provide opportunities within your application. And if you want, I can help you with that, or anyway, I can help you and I can give you some of what other people are doing. And then when you do get someone that applies and has accessibility needs, and I'm sure you'll get some, I would recommend you call them. Like, don't do the emails, just call them like, hey, we want you to be part of our team. How can we help? And then you figure out what the best fit is for them. But I know I'm older, but the calls are so meaningful versus emails all the time, right? I would call them and just say, we want you to be part of us. And if you need more information, I can get you some information as well. There's a group in the States, and the lady's name is Laura, and she runs an organization called Everyone's Invited. That's the name of the organization. And she does work with festivals to make sure that they focus on accessibility and that they're recruiting. So I can link you with Laura. I can get information for her if you need. But that's a really good question.
And sometimes, I don't know if you find this too, Dolores, because you alluded to it earlier, but sometimes you just need to ask if they want to help. I know when I was younger, it was I wanted to, but I was shy, or I didn't think I had anything to offer. And if somebody said, Deb, are you interested in coming and helping? It's like, yeah, I am. Or no, I'm not. But
yes,
sometimes you just have to ask.
You just have to ask. And that's why, and it is, it's a fair amount of work, but get out to the community groups. Really, go out, play cards with some seniors, even the youth groups. I would get involved in the youth groups. There's so many channels out there that you need really to connect with them. Don't assume that the youth are going to read your stuff. Feed it through the youth organizations. They're there. Sports organizations. Get to, really it's being out there in the community. It's having a presence and connecting. The average volunteer satisfaction, surveys are very important. And that's why I talk about, having someone who's just really going to focus on strategic measures and what do you need and what do we need to be doing next? And what is your no-show rate? I mean, I think everyone gets that. We have volunteers who sign up and then they don't show up. And then we're asking volunteers to, stay longer and whatnot. But we don't really get too many, to be honest with you. I find with the music festival, people love music, and they typically want to see the artist and they want to wear that T-shirt and be, seen in back a stage or whatever. But there are no show rates for sure. The other is when I talked about the municipality. So for example, in Ottawa, we trained emergency volunteers. So if there's an emergency in the city, they're called out to help. They're trained in emergency management and they wear certain vests. That's a whole group of people that you could go to your municipality and say, hey, if you have a volunteer program, how can we work together for your festival? Because remember, the festival is an economic generator for that municipality. So they should be helping you. And then I put here, how do you track to ensure success? Does anyone there have any tips you want to share on how you're tracking? We talked about surveys. We talked about tracking numbers. Anyone have anything else they're doing?
Would tracking be people returning to volunteer again? I guess
Yes,
they've been there, right? Yeah.
they've been there. And the thing with that, in terms of tracking, you want to know why they're coming back, because that why is what you're going to use to promote like people coming to join your club. And it's the testimonials. People, testimonials, they have so much value. Like it's just like I'm making things sound easy, and I recognize that, but it's just like a 30-second clip. Just, hey, I volunteer at this festival. I'm new to town, and I have too many friends. Like it's that stuff you want to hear.
Yeah.
It's true though, right? Yeah. So we'll go to the next one. I'm conscious of the time here because I'd like to know if anyone had any questions, but we still have more slides to go. The budget. Okay, so this is really important because the secret sauce to the success of your event is volunteers. Hands down, it's volunteers. Whether you have 20 volunteers or you have 120 volunteers, but to retain them and even recruiting, but more to retain, you need to invest in them. So yes, they need volunteer t-shirts. They need, when I talked about an identifier, maybe it's not a t-shirt, but something they can take with them. I notice with volunteers, they love t-shirts that have the date, like it'll say 2026 or something. Now, so the only thing with that is you're ordering, like when you don't have a date on it, you can use them for the next X amount of years. But they get new t-shirts every year, our volunteers, and they love them. So every year we do a different color. But you've got to make sure you put money aside. So I'll give you a sense. So we have 120 volunteers. And the t-shirts, I think I'm going to say $3,800 we spend. But you can, and I know I'm making this sound easy again, you can get someone to sponsor the t-shirts. Go to a sponsor. They can, because there's real estate on the t-shirts, right? Like you can put the sponsor's name on the arm and whatnot. So it's really just, because you could say, well, we don't have $3,800. A sponsor would, as long as you put their name on it. So the other is the meals. So someone mentioned earlier to feed them. You have to feed they're not going to stay if you don't feed them. And, I remember one time someone said, well, if it's only a 3-hour shift, why would we feed them? Well, you have to feed them. That's the bottom line. Like, even if it's just coffee and donuts, right? It doesn't have to be meals, but you have to have something there for them. We encourage our volunteers to bring their own water bottle, and then they can fill up where we are. But we do have bottles of water as well, but we do encourage them to bring their own bottles. So the number of shifts covered include in the spent hours. So this is really good for your grant application by tracking this. So say if you have let's say you have 20 volunteers, and let's say in total, I'm just going to pick a number that equates to 90 hours of volunteer hours. You want to have that because that shows when you're applying for your grant as well, that people are committed to your event within the community and really what you're getting at no cost. So that's important to always track your volunteer hours and then put a dollar figure around it. Like I would probably put, it would depend on what it is. I recognize that, but I would do like an average of $20 to $25 per hour. And when you go to the municipality, this is a little trick. When you go to the municipality, you can say, look, we're doing this event in your town. We need help. Maybe we need a generator. I don't know, we need something. But we have volunteers who are contributing to this event, which is an economic generator. And the cost, if the town was to put on or city to put this on, would be, let's say, for work, if we had to pay people, let's say, I'm just picking numbers, like I'm not doing the math on it, it's $5,000. That's really good to tell your municipality, right? Like that. So I track everything. And use all that language. If there's a municipality on there, they're probably like, oh, but the more you can tell them, right? Because you're going to apply for a grant for the municipality. You might need help from them. You might need the bylaw guys out there because maybe people have dogs like in a park that's not permitted, or maybe the traffic. But you can say, look, we're contributing. We need you to help us as well. Training materials and signage is key. I can't stress enough. We train our volunteers, and we still, even if they've been at the festival for years, we still train them. It's not as intense as the new volunteers, but we train them. And we also train them on our emergency plan. And we train them, and they can, if they want to go deeper, they'll deal with the emergency coordinator. But it is key to not just first aid, it's to train them on the emergencies. Like, so if we had to do an evacuation, and I'm really surprised at how many people love it. So we had one gentleman, he was retired military and he was new to Perth, and that was his gig. And he went to the training and he's like, oh, I love this. I did this in my career. So now we're like, oh, really? Do you want to lead this? So that's how you find out too, right? So anyway, the training, like, we can't talk enough about training. And if anyone needed on this call, if anyone wants information about training and what type of training, because it's just let me know and I can help you. And then the volunteer coordinator, we have a volunteer coordinator, and he is responsible for all of this, like the money, the tracking, everything, and then he reports in on it as well. And then we do 60 days. Okay, this is like just a checklist. I'm conscious of time here, Deb. So 60 days, confirm the roles, have an outreach plan, and meet with your local partners again. 30 days, open up signage and confirm shift leads. So we do, our festival, excuse me, is in July. And as I mentioned, after the festival, people can sign up for next year. And maybe they want to try something different than what they volunteered for this year. Those opportunities are all there. But then we do another call out in April. We include the existing volunteers, and they may have signed up, so we're aware of that, but we still include them in all the messaging. We start in April and start the recruiting process for July. And then 7 days before, send a communication and just advise of any additional shifts that are available. And sometimes people want to switch their shifts up. That's okay, but they can't do it the day of the event. So I would have language in the application and in the training that says you have to give us, if you want to switch it, it's got to be 7 days prior notice. This is where I talked about this earlier. Make it simple. Just 5-7 fields, no more. A confirmation email, because you want them to know that we got their application, and a short waiver, and code of conduct is very important. I think we all know that. But some people, they know it works, so they would just assume, no, have your code of conduct, because what are you going to say if something happens? And when things happen, you want to be able to say, we train them on the code of conduct, because what if somebody did something that was inappropriate? It could be severe or mild, for example. But by training them, at least as an organization, you're doing your due diligence. And if you need to release them as a volunteer, they're not meeting your code of conduct. And then the police record checks. So we do the police record checks, and there's different ones, as we know, if you're dealing with children and if you're dealing with cash. So we do those. And we do work with the volunteers. We send a letter out, but they can take over to the police. I think most people do that. So I just put here, but I realize we have 1 minute, so that's probably not going to work. But I was going to have a little conversation about how we recruit volunteers. But maybe, Deb, can we just ask if anyone has any questions? Maybe we'll stop here, unless we can go over it.
Nothing's come up as of yet.
Okay.
But, give them a minute to type something in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I like, we can just talk about recruiting volunteers too, like some strategies around that. And if anyone's interested, and we can get a couple of people together, if anyone's at Deb, it's up to you. And we can just do a strategy session, just like
maybe we can work with Meg on that.
Yeah. And we really go into the strategies, right? And let's start with a brand new festival. How are we going to get volunteers? Because we have no history whether it's a good festival or not, right? Those things. So we're at 11. I can certainly stay on. That's my thank you. And any questions?
Oh, there's a Q&A here. Are volunteers covered in event insurance?
They are. For why festival they are, but they are, because you have to have festival insurance, right? And it includes anyone that's involved.
Okay. That's it. Oh
yeah, volunteer position in a union environment. Yeah. So we do, you can have, and even at the city, we do have volunteers in a unionized environment. So that's all doable. It's all doable. There's language in some of the collective agreements, and I can help you with that, but absolutely. Like our emergency volunteers at the city, as I said, they got training and everything, but some of them, they have other jobs, they have jobs, but the short answer is absolutely. Yep. We can have them. The big thing with the volunteer group, honestly, is that we never say it's a job. So if you talk to Volunteer Canada and you said, oh, Meg took on a job at the festival and she's a volunteer, they will be upset with that because it's a volunteer and they deserve a special recognition over someone in a paid job, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I will say that there's a lot of organizations, us included, that during our awards ceremony at our conferences, we recognize our volunteers, right? Not our
Yes.
volunteers, but there's volunteer awards that you can apply for.
Yeah.
And we just know that our industry can't run without volunteers.
They cannot. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, they cannot. Somebody just put a question up. I can send it to you. I think my email is there, Deb.
Yep,
If anyone
it
wants
is.
to, I can send you. Yeah, I can send you the framework for sure. The funny thing with the framework for whoever wrote the question, I will
Lacey.
tell you when we did that. Oh, sorry, Deb. Did you say a name?
Her name is Lacey.
Oh, Lacey. So I will tell you, the artistic director did not like a framework. So when he came on board, he's like, "No, I need flexibility," but we said, so we found the balance, but the frame, and now he understands, yeah, it's key. It helps him program. Like when he's booking artists, it helps him. And there's no wiggle room at all in the framework, to be honest. It's just the way that festival's been going for 35 years. And at some point you realize it's working well. So
So somebody said, sorry if I missed it, but is there
Yes.
an app software specifically designed to message volunteers in various roles? That
There
roles can
is.
be posted and people can sign up to do them.
Yeah, there is. I can send, I have that. There it is. If you go through these, that's an example of the software. Thanks, Meg.
You're welcome.
All right, so just have to say, I know we're out of time. We're 3 minutes over, so thank you for staying on a little longer. This was amazing. As always, Dolores, you're a wealth of information, and thank you for doing this for us and with us today.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you
Debbie.
so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for joining. And we'll send out a follow-up email. It'll have a survey. And if, Dolores, if you're okay, I can also send a copy of this
Oh, for sure.
presentation along with that so
Yeah.
that they can have links to these software management systems and those questions and checklists for things to think about when they're
Absolutely.
looking for volunteerism.
Yeah, for sure. So actually the framework is in there. It's one of the slides, but so the person who asked if they want a separate one, I can send them that. And to all of you, thank you for joining. And certainly you have my email. Feel free. I'm a volunteer, so right. So if you have any questions, and I can tell you. And remember, I'll be in the States in January, and that's an amazing group of students. If you're wanting to link with other festivals similar to yours, I can create that link. So just send me an email. It's all good. Thank you, everyone.
Can I just
Thank
do a
you.
shameless plug, Meg, that if you join up with Festivals and Events Ontario, your membership is with International Festivals and Event Association is included. So just, and then you
Something
get
to
to
think
go
about.
there and see Dolores in all her glory.
Yeah,
So-
and you know what? It's fabulous. The school, can I just mention it, Deb? So the
Yeah,
school, so it's a 2-year program. So throughout the year you have deliverables. But so the first year and then the second year in January, we meet with the students for a week. Beautiful resort in West Virginia, and then you have myself and 6 other instructors. And they're from around the world as well. So I'm the only Canadian. There's someone there from Australia, but I mean, he's written books on festivals and event management. Risk management is his big key, but they're from everywhere. So one, I can link you, but if you're interested in taking that program, it is fantastic. It's a fantastic program.
Agreed.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank you,
much
everyone.
for attending. Enjoy Halifax. And
Yes,
thank you
yeah, I
for
will.
joining us.
Yes,
And the
thank you
next
so much.
session, Meg, the next session is December 4th.
4th. Yes, December 4th.
Yeah.
And that will also be included in the follow-up email. So if you're interested in joining us as Power and Partnerships, sign up for that. We're going to have Dolores back, who's going to be talking about the value of partnering.
Yes, and you know what? I have a lot to give on that. I mean, I talk a lot anyway, but I've already started working on that, and it's just because I want people to leave, like with a clear vision of where the partnerships are and how do you leverage them. So, okay, well, thanks
Perfect.
everyone. This was
Thank
great.
you. Thank
Take
you for
care.
the wonderful session.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.